And hello, everyone from the United States. I'm your host, Kimberly Calhoun. You are watching International Broadcast Media TV, and we are broadcasting around the world, from around the world, the great and wonderful news that is happening today. Today is actually in the United States a very special day. It is Thanksgiving Day. And this is the day that we give thanks for everything that we have in life. I am aware that other people celebrate this on other days in their cultures, but this is what I'm accustomed to. We have food cooking in the kitchen. That at like any special festival or holiday, it's always involving food of some kind. I don't know what you cook for your special holiday, but we have turkey in the oven, as we call it, and everybody gets ready to gather together as a family. This year, we're doing it virtual gathering, either by Zoom or FaceTime. But this is a time to be safe, right? We're getting a little antsy, but COVID is on the rise. Have family members that have been tested positive with COVID. I actually have family members that are having surgery today. So, COVID is not the only medical emergency that is happening in our lives. We have to be open minded to all the other medical conditions that people have in this health industry that is struggling, which the health industry has been struggling, and we need to pay it a little bit more respect, help contain the pandemic situation. Don't work against it, work with it. Let's all be a team, just like the football games that we're going to be watching today here in the United States. Let's be a team. Let's unite. Let's work together and try to contain the COVID situation, because as we can see around the world, it is taking over. With us today, we have a very special guest. He was joining us during the political campaigns, all the way from Morrisville, little town of Morrisville. It's not little anymore. I lived there when I was going to college. But we have Steve Rao. Steve, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Kimberly, and everyone around the world. And from our heart to yours, a happy Thanksgiving. And we hope everyone is safe. And if there's an empty seat at the table today or more than that, we pray for anyone around the world who's lost a loved one or family member due to COVID-19. So, but it's an honor to be here with you today.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. You're absolutely right. There are a lot of empty seats this year, more than we would have ever dreamed of beginning 2020, which we were entering 2020 with good vision, right? That was our logo, right? Was 2020. We had a lot of marketing campaigns of good vision. Sometimes experience gives us new vision, and that's the way we have to take it this year. What are some of the things you were part of the big political campaigns going on? You've been out there, probably still staying in touch with it. Once it was over, well, I don't think it's really over, but I kind of like shut it off and went on doing something. And what's been going on?
Well, here in the United States, the good news is that the General Service Administration, which oversees the transition, has formally authorized President-elect Joe Biden, the 46th president-elect, to begin the transition process. So he has selected a number of important cabinet positions, including Tony Blinken to be our Secretary of State, Janet Yellen to be the first female national treasurer, and a number of different Alejandro Mayorkas, who is going to be the first immigrant, Cuban American, a Cuban immigrant, to become the Homeland Security Director. So President Biden's putting together a government which does make people feel certain that come January we'll have closure to the election. Of course, there's still uncertainty about lawsuits and challenges, and President Trump refusing to concede the race. He does have every right, if you're listening around the world, to ask for recounts, and we want that to happen. But I think to Kimberly, to answer your question, the good news is the government's starting to form, and I think there's also a lot of excitement about Kamala Harris. Prime Minister Modi in India already spoke to the president-elect. I saw on a show the other day, and he is very excited about the first Indian woman to be in the second highest office in the land. So that's
Oh,
quite
wow.
exciting. Yes.
It's very exciting to me, and it's I'm going to look on the positive side of this that we have finally, as she put it, broke through the glass ceiling. I never called it the glass ceiling. I called it that stainless steel ceiling, because if you recall, we've not once but more than once we've had a woman running mate, and it seemed like that was more of a hindrance than and burden to the campaign than it was a promote. And not nothing against those women. I respect every one of them. People have no idea what it takes to be a woman and move up in power. I mean, there are just so many challenges, not on a day to day basis of how you word things. You're generally engaging in a male dominant world, so kudos to her. She is. You've met her, right?
Yeah, I've met her a couple of times, and very impressive. She was a prosecutor, attorney general for the largest state in the United States, California, and went on to become a U.S. senator, and been on the Judiciary Committee, major committees. Very close to Joe Biden's first son, Beau Biden, who passed away tragically about 2 years ago, maybe a couple years ago, when his dad was leaving the vice presidency. And she knew Beau Biden when they were both attorney generals. So there's a strong connection between the Biden family and the Harris family. So that's good to see that there'll be a little bit of a family unit there working together. And the other thing, what's going on is there's a lot of excitement here about the vaccines. So Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and Moderna all looking like, they're almost 97, 96, 97%. So they're saying we'll be taking the vaccine beginning by December 13th, sometime before the end of December, where we'll be going into three different phases: high risk, first responders, hospital workers, and then eventually the general public. But that's light at the end of the tunnel, not only for those of us in America, but around the world, because I think the sooner we can start distributing vaccines, working with countries around the world, we can see the virus come down and save lives and get our world back to normal, because the whole world has gone awry in 2020.
Right. And I'm not going to discredit Trump at all about what his work and involvement has been in and trying to implement a plan for vaccines, because we've already it must have happened while he was officially still in office, and he still is. He put in place a means to distribute it. They've set aside $26 billion, gave it to the Army, to make sure that the Army will distribute whatever vaccine we're pushing out. And they're standing ready. They're, getting the distributions. And I thought 26 billion was a lot of money, but, you know, that shows that some effort was being put in place to make sure we had what was needed. I don't know. I'm glad that to hear vaccines are being put together. I don't know that I'm very confident in a vaccine that was thrown together this fast, but we'll see what happens. I mean, the one thing it does do, and somebody made a point of pointing this out to me, is it gives people faith and something to stand on.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think, and one interesting message, and I think this is for anyone around the world listening today, it's quite exciting on this whole notion of foreign born innovation. How, when you look at the COVID-19 vaccines, which have been built, which have been developed very quickly through a new technology called RNA, messenger RNA. And I'm not a scientist, so it's pretty complicated stuff, but they've accelerated the development. But what's amazing is the founder of Moderna is from Lebanon. The CEO and is from France. The chief technology officer is from Russia. The Pfizer vaccine was done in partnership with Turkish immigrants, the founders of the BioNTech company. So you're seeing international people from all around the world who have come together to America to accelerate innovation, and I call it foreign-born innovation. And I think it shows that the interconnectedness we have in the world has worked to the advantage of mankind. And in our greatest moment of adversity, the United States and all these leaders from around the world have worked so hard to produce this vaccine. And I think that's an interesting point to make. There's been a lot of talk about immigration recently, but we don't talk enough about the positive things that positive immigration can do. So imagine if these immigrants hadn't come to America to do these research. And I think the CEO, his name, I'll have to get his name for the end, but he's actually overseen over 100 patents and invested in over 40 startups in the United States. So that's
Wow.
pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, Nubar Afeyan, the founder of Moderna.
Okay. So, yeah. So, what's interesting to me is so many people have taken the positive movement towards finding a solution, like you said. And this is not the first time we've ever seen this happen globally. Many, many years ago, during world wars, scientists were getting together to help solve disease problems among the human race. Even though they were adversaries globally, they still united and solved, they found vaccines, medicines. They did research together. Scientists sometimes, they don't look at all the political aspects. So, kudos to them. They want to find solutions for humanity where, we're fighting in other ways, but that is wonderful to hear. What are some of the other things that are going on? The cabinet has been selected. Am I correct?
The cabinet has been selected. Yeah, I mean, pretty much all the major positions. We Tony. Here's the thing: everybody that President-elect Biden has selected has a lot of experience in the government. They've either worked for previous administrations. He's starting first with foreign policy, so it's very important. I mean, we often forget Joe Biden was a U.S. senator for many years before he was the vice president. He
Mhm.
served on the Foreign Affairs Committee. He served on the Judiciary Committee. So he's known a lot of these people. So the first person is Tony Blinken, his longtime advisor, who served as a deputy secretary of state, is coming now to be the secretary of state, uh, longtime advisor. John Kerry, former U.S. senator and secretary of state and former candidate for presidency of the United States, is going to be the climate czar, which will be the first time a position for those of you around the world. First time a U.S. president has named the National Security Council somebody to do environment, climate change, which affects all of us. I find that to be interesting. In terms of intelligence, Avril Haines, the first female to serve in over U.S. intelligence, and also Janet Yellen, a lot of experience having worked with the Federal Reserve. So, but he's the president, as he told Lester Holt last night on NBC. He's first of all, he's spending a lot of time calling world leaders. So he's spending a few hours a day. He spoke to Macron in France, Modi in India, all of the Middle Eastern countries, everyone around the world. He just appointed a national security advisor, Jake Sullivan. So these appointments are coming in, but he has made it clear he has two objectives. One is to put together a cabinet that can restore a little bit more stability to our foreign policy, and then really, really work on getting the economy moving and getting the world rid of this pandemic, and having the U.S. play more of an active role with more masks, more personal protective equipment, those kinds of things. So those are the, you know, two major things going on with the cabinet.
Yeah, no, and it's going to have to happen. I mean, I'm glad to see that they're putting it in place, even though we're doing a recount. What are your thoughts on the recount? Do you think there's any possible way that it could swing and Trump wins?
Well, and actually, I don't think so at all. I mean, I think that the first of all, legally, he's allowed to do a recount, and I think it's a good thing he's doing the recount. But it looks like after the recount, the swing states that put 291 electoral votes in the hands of Joe Biden are going to stay. The only way to stop the election is to get it to the Supreme Court of the United States. And that case, I think, is already the court's not going to take the case, which is that allowing the absentee ballots to be counted beyond the election day. Like in our home state, it was November 12th. Some states, it was November 10th or 13th. If that's not upheld, then the last cause of action would be the Republican legislators. That's President Trump's making that case now of turning the electoral back to the Trump. Very unlikely that will happen. Most even Republicans like Governor DeVine of Ohio, others are not supporting that at all. And so I think at this stage, it's fair to assume that President Trump will be leaving the White House. He has said he will run again, so we don't know whether this is a way of not conceding and continuing. But we hope that he. I just hope the people that supported President Trump will give President-elect Biden a chance, President Biden a chance to be successful. But Trump has already said he's putting together a committee to run again, which is, a rematch. And which would be if you're listening around the world, Grover Cleveland was a president for 4 years, took a break, came back, and then the only U.S. president that lost. He actually lost a race. He wasn't the incumbent. Richard Nixon lost to Kennedy, came back and became president in 1968. Yeah, and before that had lost governor of California and a U.S. Congress race. So Richard Nixon was it was actually the greatest political comeback in the history of the U.S. Actually.
It's persistence, right? If you want it
Yes,
bad enough, you're just going to keep persisting. I think Abe Lincoln ran many times before he became president. So, from what I remember in history, so there are people, they just get persistent. They have an agenda or a goal that they want to get done, and that's good. I'm glad. That's good. We need to generate that kind of excitement and challenges. What I would rather see, rather than people, I want to see policies. Right? We got to fix this country. This country is at the bottom. Even Biden said we're starting at the bottom, but we're going to build back up. And I would like to hope that we focus on policies, like you said. People give Biden a chance. To implement some of the things that could help us. But again, these are things that have to be, laid out and thought through, and people are going to have to vote for it. The Senate's going to have to vote. It's a whole process, right?
it's a whole process, and I think that yeah, exactly. I mean, hopefully he's picked some good cabinet heads that I think will get approval from the Senate. We don't know if the U.S. Senate is going to go in the Republican hands. It's going to come down to one state, Georgia, and it looks like they'll probably win. So you could have a divided government in the U.S., a Democratic president, Republican Senate, and the United States Congress, which is Democrat, the House. But hopefully they can get these cabinets appointments confirmed. And then I think my only hope is that President Biden will work on some of these issues where we can bring the parties together. So one would be a stimulus package, putting money in the hands of businesses and stimulus checks to the millions of Americans who are unemployed. Number one, infrastructure and transportation, I think, has been very weakened in America. So getting investments in that, and then restoring, focusing on issues like broadband access. I think wherever you are in the world, without Wi-Fi, without internet, we can do remote education, we can do teleworking, and then his Build Back Better America plan, figure out ways to get America back. The stock market is going up. The Dow was up to 30,000 yesterday because of the promise of a vaccine. And but if the quicker the U.S. economy recovers, then I think it's better for the rest of the world. And then, he's also approved a COVID-19 task force he's put together, which is chaired by another Indian American, Vivek Murthy, who is the former Surgeon General of the U.S. So this is good news because I think many world leaders have been expressing their hope that they glad that America is getting back on track. The United
Right.
States.
The stock, I try to tell people, I think we're going to see it go up and down for a while. It would be nice to see a stable up, but if you look in history and time, I think we got to give it we got to be patient, right? Don't get excited, give it some time, lower your expectations, invest wisely. A lot of things cause the stock market to go down. One of the things I've noticed though is when the stock price went up, yesterday. So I've been watching Bitcoin go up, right? Bitcoin was up to $19,000 2 days ago. 19, yeah, per I know, right? And everybody's been getting excited about it. And then the stock market goes up, and I noticed the Bitcoin went down a little bit, and they might not have anything to do with each other. I just kind of watch these things, but that's something else that has been making a great big change and big leaps is our economy and our innovation. Right, innovation is still continuing, and like you said, broadband. We have to get broadband back and available. This has actually been a push from the National Institute of Standards Technology for several years, where I have worked with them on smart cities for many years. They have been wanting to figure out how to deploy broadband, especially in the poverty sections, because in the U.S., you're probably aware of this. We're probably one of the major places that make you buy the bandwidth. Some countries you don't pay for it. It's accessible everywhere you go, right? Like in China, but they also control the content that you get, and they control how you communicate and what's communicated there. But I remember working with some people from China, and they would come over here for business meetings, and they go, "Geez, internet's so expensive here." And I go, "What are you talking about?" And they go, "It's free everywhere, but we have to, in China, but if we go to a hotel, we have to pay for it at the hotel. Then if we go to the cafe, we have to pay for it at the cafe. If we go to, the airport, we have to pay." He goes, it's not freely accessible here. I go, "No, it's not." And he goes, and they asked me, "How do the people who are in poverty afford it?" And I go, "They just don't get it. Unfortunately, that's the way our country runs." So I will tell you this: in smart cities, which the North Carolina has been a very powerful presence in there's several different smart city programs.
Oh,
But we've been, but the push has been to try to get an umbrella established in the cities. Chicago took it very serious, and I watched them work with different innovators to figure out how to put an
yeah.
umbrella in the city, because they have a lot of poverty sections. Austin, Texas was another place that I watched the city itself take on that mission. Raleigh, North Carolina, they were taking on a different. The city council was taking on a different push, and I remember sitting in one of the meetings, and their major concern was, I hate saying this, I'm almost embarrassed, but parking meters and parking, right? But we
Yeah.
need that too. That was very important. But their push wasn't to put in the umbrella infrastructure for broadband to be reached everywhere. So this is actually my background.
No,
Uh,
I love it, Kimberly. I mean, you're getting me so excited because I actually lead our smart cities initiatives in Morrisville, which is right in the center of the Research Triangle. And for us, we've come a long way in Morrisville. We actually, what we did was we took our strategic plan and we put together a smart city assessment. And we came in, and now we've got a smart city plan that's going to focus on the areas of state sustainability. So, temperature is in the rooms, whether energy, we're being energy efficient, uh, flood sensors in the parks. So you would get notifications on a heavy rain like today, where it rained this morning and last night. Is there going to be flooding? And then you'd automatically get a notification, don't go to that park or your neighborhood. Transportation in terms of road congestion. So every city is going to have their own flair. But it's quite amazing what smart cities can do to have that kind of technology available at our fingertips so we can make better decisions. And we're putting together a smart city steering committee now to encourage people to give their ideas. But Raleigh and NC State, I must say, has been doing magnificent stuff in this area. Chancellor Woodson and the team there have been working so hard on grants that they're giving to Raleigh. I was there 2 years ago when Governor O'Malley from Maryland was there. He was speaking
I,
for the Metro Lab, and I was there with Dennis Kikas and everybody. I'm
I
wearing my
was
NC State
there.
colors today.
I was there.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So, and yeah, you were there.
I know
Yeah.
Dennis. I know. I sit on the board of advisors there.
Oh, he's a great guy. I've known him
I
for
sit
many
on the
years.
computer science department board of advisors with Dennis Kikas and
Oh yeah, really. I love NC State. But anyway, I think you've really hit the nail on the head. Any cities from all around the world are going smart. The big cities, and it's so important that we provide that. But you can't be a smart city without broadband, without Wi-Fi, without good technology, right? And in our own home state, how many cities are smart cities? Raleigh, Charlotte, Cary, the big cities, more so now, right? But not 400. We have 400 For those of you around the world, in this state where Kimberly and I live in, we have about 400 cities,
Mhm.
towns, right? That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Some are in rural, some are large. But if you're living in, most people in India or Europe know Raleigh, I think. They know Charlotte. They know Chicago. They know
And
Atlanta. The big cities. The big
the
cities.
big cities,
Las
right?
Vegas, right?
They
Um,
know LA and Houston, Texas, and they know where all the NFL players are.
that's
That's
right.
how I put it. The big cities where the NFL is.
Yeah.
But you gotta take a look at some of the things that smart city initiatives are doing. It's very expensive. This is what I tell people. Hi, Ankit.
And kid, good
Good morning.
morning,
How are you
sir.
doing?
Hey, good to
Good
see you,
morning.
sir.
Good morning. And happy Thanksgiving to
Happy
everyone out in America.
Thanksgiving. Yes.
Thank you. It's a great day. We woke up to rain, but it should burn out and move on. But everybody, turkey's in the oven. That's what I tell people. The turkey's in the oven, and we've got lots of here. Oh gosh, my financial advisor is so sweet. He just sent us a pie that's bigger than half the table. I don't know who baked it, but he sent us a pie. I mean, the thing is huge. But this is a day to be thankful. We put a lot of emphasis on food here, just like any festival, right? Any festival is about good food, good music, and that usually family gathering. And I've been getting text all morning from family. We're going to do virtual. Play it safe. So we're doing the Zoom and the FaceTime, and but kids are what I've noticed. Everybody's been so worried about the children, but the children seem to be very resilient and accepting to this new
Yes.
thing. But Steve and I were talking about the importance of the new smart city initiatives to make sure we get broadband, and like we experience. Aw, thank you. But we were talking about the importance of, now that we got new leadership here and there's new leaderships in other parts of the world, that we need to put in the initiatives for better at-home education right now, because this could happen again as we grow out of this. But this has always been a necessity anyway. Nick and I, when we started the mission of financial literacy to close that gap, one of the things I said about that gap is financial literacy, right?
Yeah.
But the other is access to financial literacy. That's what differentiates the poverty from the sustainable, is the access to financial literacy, because we don't just learn in schools anymore. And like Steve and I were discussing, there's so many areas, we know this around the world, that do not have the broadband access, right? And this is my background. I helped build the very first broadband backbone. We literally cut over the very first MRI to transfer from UNC and Duke Chapel Hill area across through MCNC. And I was one of the engineers there that was lead and part of the project. After that, as I moved on, one of the initiatives I tried to do was build out and engineer fiber in the cities. But this was, Steve, get this. This was back in 1993 when we did all of this. Okay, now think about, when was it that you heard that you could first access fiber to the home?
Gosh, I can't even remember.
No. I'm talking about with Google, fiber to the home was probably what,
Oh,
5 or 6 years ago?
yeah, 6
Yeah.
years ago.
Well,
Right.
if you ask me, I heard about the fiber technology when I was in US in 2008, and I mean, a lot of people, when they are doing a lot of construction work, they know that they can use fiber, or they can have the fiber implant done. And whenever the technology comes in, it's easy for them just to use it, because my brother works with Remax, and he knows about something called fiber. So they were trying to do it, but it's costly at that time. But now Google Fiber is there, so it's pretty easy.
Well, a lot of people don't understand the cost of it. I engineered the price, cost, and the engineering for fiber in the town of Cary back in 2004. I prepared the financial plan, and to deploy it in the town of Cary was about $150 million.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's a small town. That's a big town, but it's a small town. But you got to, but I actually had to engineer it. Get this. I was given it to, first off, the town of Cara goes, we want to get rid of Time Warner. We hate, and they actually published it in the newspaper. Please bring us something to get rid of Time Warner. That's the ad they did. So I went to them and gave them a proposal. And get this, they go, oh yeah, you know, Time Warner, this, that, and the other, but we can't give you the right of way. We want you to replace them, but we can't give you any right of way. So I had to engineer a way to get fiber deployed without using the right of way, and I did it. I found it. I didn't do it by myself, okay? But I researched and found how to deploy it without using the right of way, without having to dig ditches everywhere, without having to cut into people's pipes and homes. And it exists, but it was a $150 million project.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
Wonderful. So, Kim, I have a question for you in terms of the telecom industry is concerned. Can we plant a lot of what you can say a tree with a modem or tree with a Wi-Fi signal so that it's easy for us to, get those signals from a tree, and tree can, you can plant that tree anywhere and it's eco-green and stuff like that. Why can't we do that? Because for that, you know what happened in India, basically, we have a good broadband and Wi-Fi connection, but when we don't have that connection in some places, we put we put a big truck or we put a big trailer and
Steve, are you okay? Steve, I'm laughing a little bit, but do you know the cell tower trees?
Yes.
That's why when he said, can we plant the trees with Wi-Fi? We have cell tower trees, and I just laugh every time I see them. I go, oh my God, that is the ugliest tree I've ever seen. Why can't we just leave it? Also, to Ankit's thing, for rural areas, because when I was working on the smart city initiatives for a while, people were coming up with drones that would pop up.
Yeah.
Right? And the drones would be a carrier of Wi-Fi, but, more for emergency situations, because drones can't stay up very long, right? And what a lot of people don't understand is Wi-Fi works as an umbrella, right? The signal, the point is here and it singles out. Now we have a Omni Wi-Fi, and I actually have a tower in my yard for testing we did testing for years in my yard. And the Wi-Fi signal from the old equipment, we would get, beyond 10 miles.
Wow.
Okay, beyond 10 miles, we were getting what we call broadband at the time. Of course, that has changed. But to do this again, and I understand how to deploy it so that you always have it, but a lot of people don't want to take that initiative to provide the tiered capabilities to engineer something so that you have it everywhere. But I have the whole layout. I have the whole plan, how to do a whole city. What was interesting to me is one of the cities in North Carolina decided, well, we're going to do it. We're going to do it cheaper. And we're going to hire these two guys because they say they can do it for $5 million. And I'm like, you can't do fiber. The network costs more than $5 million. And, so they hired these two guys, and they wrote the two guys a $5 million check. The two guys dropped fiber cable on the highway and left.
Yes, I know.
So I'm not laughing, other than be careful. Be careful when somebody comes to the town and says we can do it, because I have engineered this inside out, upside down. The only other way you could do something is if you could find a way, which some of the labs I worked in was implementing copper to be able to carry high bandwidth. Copper is still very valuable. The copper in the ground, the telephone.
Yeah.
The copper in the ground is still very, very valuable. It's what I like about it is it can carry the electricity as well. There are other cables that can do that, but they are not insulated properly. And anytime you have a storm, they rot easy. Copper doesn't rot. So cable will rot. So there's so much to the technology. Fiber became a great other solution to what I call the copper world, because it doesn't rot. The bandwidth is unlimited. right? Because you're traveling by the speed of light. That's what I try to explain to people. Everything in the fiber world happens with light. And so these are some great things. I want to see this happen around the world. I don't know what India is like. They seem to have really good bandwidth. Ankit always seems to be, occasionally, because we're all suffering in the pandemic, we are dropping and not dropping and dropping. But in the world of today, I'm seeing even the small villages striving to get that bandwidth up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, India does seem to have done a very good job with that, but
Mhm.
I think it's so important globally, as I was watching my interview with them again this morning when I was running. John Chambers, he talked about, the 15 million new jobs we can create in the next decade, and it's going to be in emerging technologies. It's going to require a lot of vision to train and upskill our workforce. But those 15 million jobs, it's going to be competitive. India, China, Canada, countries all around the world are going to be vying to that, for that next big venture. So we have a lot of work to do here in the U.S. And actually, John has said that he's actually very impressed with Prime Minister Modi and how much he's been doing to support startups. And India has really been hit by COVID, 9.26 million deaths.
I
So we're
know.
praying for everyone in Delhi, from Washington D.C. to Delhi. And then speaking of Delhi, they just announced yesterday or this morning that they're canceling all international flights to and from India because of the
Really?
pandemic until December 31st. Yes. Breaking news for anyone around the world listening to this, because no trip to India for New Year's this year. Yeah.
I see people still planning business trips, and I go, why are we doing business trips when we can still do a lot from Zoom, right?
Yeah, it's not a good
Don't do
time.
work a lot from email, because I think there's a lot of misinterpretations in email and texting, but definitely try to go as much as you can face to face on Zoom. But I even noticed, like, our current EPA director of the United States was booking business trips out of the country, and I go, why? There's nothing to do right now. Why are we
No.
booking? Yeah, why are we
Oh,
booking trips? So um, they're just, I think it's time that our government set some examples, that we hunker down just a little bit longer, right? Stay in the
right.
foxhole.
Absolutely. I mean, we just got to be safe. That's the most important thing, right?
Well, just wait until it's fixed, right? You don't sit there and plug up the dam with putty, right? And hope it's not going to bust open, right? People get out of the way of the dam, right?
Right.
Wait
Absolutely.
until the putty dries and make sure it's secure. I
Absolutely.
mean, that's I know that's a bad analogy, but the thing is that wait until it's fixed. We're all too excited, and I am hopeful for the vaccine. And I don't know if Ankit recalls this, but some of the doctors and researchers we've had on the show, they talked about how all the different varieties of COVID we have now. So I don't know that one vaccine is going to be the end all cure, but one of the things that has given me a little bit of like faith or hope is, one, we've learned to build our immunity, right? That's very, very important. But the other is several of my doctors, not just the ones on the TV, but my own doctors have told me each variation, as it's transferred from human to human, weakens the new COVID is weakened. So by the time it's generated down and mutated, it's weakened. Its power against you is weakened, and your ability to treat it is better. Yes, Ankit.
But I think, Kim, what happened is that that could be a real, research what they have done. But on the other hand, if that COVID transforms from one person to the other, and that person is with a chronic disease or is having something else, then it becomes stronger, because
Right.
now it becomes mutating, and it becomes more stronger. And
Yeah, it
that's
has
what happened.
mutated. Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what
mutated.
happened.
Mutation,
Exactly.
remember, we started with one or two, three mutations. Now we don't know how many mutations are going on, and there is
Yes.
no clarity in that. In fact, I tell you, interesting. When you talk about Delhi, Steve mentioned about Delhi. So I was in a diagnostic lab in the morning, and surprise, surprise, there is no one checking that who is coming to the lab. They are not checking the temperature. No one. I mean, anyone can walk into the lab, get the testing done. And in the COVID era, it's difficult because a COVID patient can also be a part of the same facility, and then that creates a spread. But we are not following the norms at the bottom. I mean, government is trying to do their best, but at the public level, at the private level, at the people to people connect level, I don't see people are following the norms, and that's why the cases are going up. Because basically, if you follow or if you check out the case studies in Taiwan or Iceland or maybe in South Korea or Hong Kong, they have done it beautifully because they are following all the rules. They are more disciplined than us. And I mean, it's not about democratic countries, but I think democracy also people think that, I mean, we can do whatever we want to do. I mean, because it's democracy. So you have the right to talk and say and do a lot of stuff. And we are not following the norms. And then we are struggling with and now people are waiting for vaccine. And according to me, vaccine is just a temporary solution. We have to, I mean, look for a solution which is over vaccine, and that is discipline, and that's what we need to focus on.
Yeah, and I think the key, Ankit, that's a great point. I mean, the virus has mutated, and I think, it's, one book I would recommend for everybody reading watching around the world is Fareed Zakaria's book, 10 Lessons for a Post-Pandemic World. And he has some fascinating insight in there in terms of what went wrong. And, the bottom line is all of the theorists and the economists said if there was a pandemic, the United States has the healthcare system, everything in place, and we absolutely failed. We didn't have the PPE, we didn't have the equipment, but we really failed in contact tracing. And there was also, it wasn't only President Trump's fault. He didn't do a very good job running the pandemic. I think that's why he was voted out of office. But, at the end of the day, the DHHS, our Secretary of DHHS was saying, don't wear a mask. Then they said, wear a mask. Then they said, you can't get it if you're not old. And then they said, well, everyone can get it. So there was so much mixed messaging and you just weren't able to handle it. But something as simple as wearing a mask, in our state of North Carolina, the governor, our chief minister, in India, they call it chief minister. He said that everybody now indoors has to wear a mask. So just by wearing a mask, you not only protect yourself and others. So there's going to be other behaviors, even after this virus. Sanjay Gupta says we'll have to be wearing masks probably until the fall of next year, because it's going to take a while for this vaccine to roll out. Probably by the summer, it'll get out to about 20 million people in the U.S., right?
One of my favorite movies is 93 Days. It's a true story about how they battled Ebola in Nigeria when it hit and could have just spread like wildfire. And like we know, Ebola, it's 98% fatality rate. And they turned those odds around purely by isolating everything. But I think the biggest mistake, majority of the countries that survived, like you said, the people listened, but they had a pandemic policy in place and probably a pandemic team. We fired our pandemic team. And when you don't have that infrastructure in place to guide you, but I'm going to argue the fact that they didn't have the information. And who didn't have the information? And see, they did, because I was reading white papers in February that was telling me what this disease will do to the human body. And I was asking, point blank, outwardly asking, why are we saying this is not going to kill the young people? Because this will if it gets into the human body, it creates a blood storm if it gets past the lungs. According to the researchers, that was St. John Hopkins. I was reading their white papers. These were the exact same white papers that Trump had copies of, his staff had copies of. So, they rush at the last minute, but a friend of mine is one of the directors there, and he said that Trump was damned if he did or damned if he didn't. No matter what decision he made, it was going to be the wrong decision, because it was, it was just too tough. It was kind of like when they have to call schools for snow and then it doesn't snow. The governor looks like an idiot, everybody goes, oh man, the kids are home now, So they said Trump was kind of like in that same situation. And they felt kind of, even though some of them are at odds with him, they felt kind of bad for him, because it was a no-win situation. We have another guest from around the world that just popped in all the way from Switzerland with that big bright smile. I love it. Hi, good morning, good evening, Ben.
Good evening. Hi.
Hey, Ben.
How are you doing?
Oh, very good. Thank you. It's
How are
it's
you?
it's cloudy and cold here.
Cloudy and cold. You give us
Yeah.
an idea of cold this time of year.
It's not that cold as it should be, but still it is cold. The temperature went down very, very fast.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay. Well, in our country, we're celebrating Thanksgiving. So even
I know.
though it's chilly outside, it's really hot in the kitchen because, we're like any holiday in any culture, we're cooking a lot of food.
Yeah.
And, and somebody delivered a pumpkin pie to us that's bigger than our table. I have
No, we don't have that here yet.
so, but anyway, so what's going on in your part of the world today?
Start with the bad news. they're
Let's
they're
start with
they're
the bad and build up.
yeah, exactly. So they're thinking of closing down all the ski resorts. So European Union is closing down all the ski resorts till the beginning of January. Switzerland is still open, but you never know. They may also soon end out. So that means there goes all our ski vacations and
Wow.
weekends. So that's a pity, especially the kids. They are all looking forward to it, to the vacations, which is coming soon.
Wow, wow. Yeah, this
So,
is Europe is really. Go ahead, sorry.
Tourism is taking, go ahead, but tourism's taking a hit. Just real quick though, I used to ski a lot. I mean, I grew up skiing. It's one of my favorite sports, that and ice skating. Two to me, very distant individual skating, unless you're ice dancing, right? I don't think anyone snow dances, but it seems like it could be a sport that you could still keep the slopes open.
yeah. But apparently it was a couple of weeks back, or I think a month or two back in Austria, one of the ski resort was a kind of center of COVID spread.
Oh, wow.
And since then, they have become extremely strict with it. And especially because people come to these resorts and then they go back and then they're scared that they bring back COVID.
Right. I guess we got to we were just talking about that maybe it's time we just hunker down, lock it down just a little bit harder, a little bit longer, right? And then it will be better. One of my favorite, I was telling them, my favorite movies is 93 Days. It's a true story about when Nigeria got hit with Ebola and it could have just wiped them clean. And they contained it, right? But it was under very strict policies. They took it upon themselves. The doctors did. Some of the leaders didn't want to because they were afraid it was going to cause problems. But because of it, they turned around the odds, right? The odds are usually 98% of the people die of it, and they turn those odds completely around. So, but what I told people is that's an epidemic situation, could have been pandemic, but it took 93 days to clear it out, not 3 weeks like they kept saying. Oh, we only need to shut down 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion on this? How long do you think we need to be really locked down hard?
I think the whole matter is to break the spike. So I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I think it will take a couple of weeks. If strictly followed, in a couple of weeks, we can bring it down because then you break the spike. But since we have never managed to strictly follow it, I mean, I was talking to friends, so we are supposed to be having friends from Germany and Netherlands. Nobody seems to be able to come anymore because they can come, but when they go back, they get 10 days quarantine. Right. And people can't afford that. So for Germans, it's difficult, but Germany has, despite of its very strong democratic traditions and free traditions, it still has been able to pass through a new law, which kind of controls the movement of every citizen. Netherlands, on the other hand, didn't pass that law. So in Netherlands, my friend said, oh, we can come and we go back and nobody will control us anyway. So I think Europe has too many cultures and to control it is really hard.
Yeah, and they're having a lot of issues. I know that President Macron in France recently has had a lot of issues and they ordered a lockdown. Now he's altering the rules so people can gather for Christmas and holidays. United Kingdom, Britain, Boris Johnson. Switzerland, it's all over Europe. I mean,
exactly.
How do you control that behavior? And I think also for us in America, it's been it's not just how many tests you have; it's the contact tracing and how quickly. So, Taiwan had 25 million cases and 7 deaths, which is amazing. But they were able to realize from their mistakes of SARS, and they
Exactly.
were the
But
United
Steve,
States.
you know that, for Taiwan, they don't have any, they don't record any cases from past 230 days, not even a single case. And still they are taking all the precautions, they are doing all the sanitizations, and the travel is still banned, and they are not claiming that they are COVID free. They're following all the rules because it's pandemic and it can happen again. And what happened in New Zealand? I mean, they claimed that they were COVID free, but then they had one case happen, and then suddenly they had to lock down Auckland and subzone.
Yeah.
And now yesterday, what happened yesterday? So they started they started
the Pakistanis.
and then 6 Pakistanis got COVID, and now they are nowhere. So people are taking. I mean, I think they are not following the rules, and there is somewhere in between people are not playing their part, and that's why we are again spreading the virus, and that's what's happening because we know that because of the traveling thing, this spread around the world, and we are still traveling a lot, and that's the cause of concern, and everyone knows about it. But importantly, when you know that, I mean, I'm not sure, but WHO is not playing their part. That's what we understand from our country. But we never formed any other organization which is known as Global Pandemic Team, and so that we can share the best practices and share the data. We are not sharing the data. In fact, if you compare RT-PCR test with the antigen test, you'll get a solution or you'll get an answer because a lot of countries are not doing RT-PCR; they are doing antigen, and antigen is 70% success rate. So a lot of people who are false negative, they are still outside because they're negative. But according to RT-PCR, they're positive. So there's a lot of.
Yeah, I think so. I think also using technology. There's a startup here that I serve as an advisor for in our home state, North Carolina, named Tanjo, and he's leveraging artificial intelligence, taking data from cities that's available through DHHS and offering that he's developed an artificial intelligence brain that cities can use to make better forecasts, just in terms of where social distancing has been effective. Now we're doing that with our own dashboards. Now we've got a county map that shows a state map that shows.
I'll tell you what I mean. I'll tell you what, we already have a technology there. I am surprised why not Google and Apple come forward and do that. Because if you put the data on a map, whenever you are driving, you know that there's a containment zone. I don't have to drive from this side. It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
I can do it. On a Google map, you just have to mention that these are the places and these are the places where you have more cases. So try to detour and try to avoid those places. That's about it. But we are not doing that. And the technology is there. It's just about planning and implementation, which is the lacking point. And also the world is not working together as a group. And that's what the concern, because everyone is having their own, some people say that you have to have a 2 feet distance. Some say social distancing is 10 feet. Some says 5 feet. Some says 1 feet. So there is no proper awareness going on. And that's why people are, enjoying their holidays. It's called COVID holidays.
I actually have an app. I wrote an app that's similar to Google Map, but it's called Meet You There. But you could track multiple people, and you can see if you used it, if people were properly diagnosed and then marked that they have COVID. You could see if you ever came in contact just using the app I have. I haven't generated it in a while. I decided to set it back, but there's several. They're not impossible to make. The thing is utilizing them. Just like this guy Tango, you have to collect the data. This is what I tell people. You have to get the data and you have to have the thresholds. And according to Dr. Arthur, the problem is, and this was his biggest disappointment as a doctor, he's been on our show several times, is that this is what he said, nobody was working like ANCAS and nobody's globally working together to pull this. But you're right, Steve, the technology is here. It's, North Carolina State, since day one, I was so proud of my school over there that they started putting together even 3D printing shields. Like, literally, I don't know if you remember, but by the middle of March, the students were 3D printing shields, and they were putting together, who can build the best app to do this and who can. So it's there, but the problem is, I think, and it's true, and and like Ben and everyone's talking about, is what happened. Everybody disappeared. Ankit disappeared. That's everybody to me. Ankit disappeared. Is that you don't have anyone globally pandemic team globally. And you know what? It would be so easy for us to put a pandemic team globally. The doctor who was put in charge when the Ebola hit Nigeria back in, I think, 2012, and he contained it so well. He's right here in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just 5 hours away from us, Steve. That doctor is such a power. Go watch today, if you get a chance, watch the movie 93 Days. It's with Danny Glover. It is a true story. You can go Google every person in there. You know, again, it's not going to be a happy story, but what an inspirational story of how you can contain the situation. But my first thought was, why didn't we call him right away and put him in charge above who? There were some other things going on, like CDC was having closed meetings. CDC is supposed to be working for the public. There should be no closed meetings. And I'm wondering, why have we not seen one under the microscope research? This should be open to public now. If they're researching under the microscope, why aren't we seeing videos of it? I think it would be beautiful to watch. Okay, if we dropped bleach on COVID, this is what happens. If you drop alcohol, this is what. I think that would be good and inspiring. We're not seeing any of this. And everybody says, oh, Kim, you can't share that research. We need to. We need to.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's just amazing, you know, the potential that's out there. And I think it's an evolving process, and it's going to require, in a post-pandemic world, a change of a mindset. So I think that's only silver lining in the cloud is that we've learned a lot about our capabilities. We learned a lot about what we need to do better a job of for future pandemics. And as my favorite quote from Fareed Zakaria's book is that there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen.
Yeah, that's true.
And I read that and I go, oh my God. I mean, think about how much has happened, but this whole notion of cities and, you know, our city's going to be doomed now that people are going to be teleworking and the economy is going to shut down. But, you know, he has a lot of great examples of the bubonic, the plague, and how Florence emerged from the Renaissance, or Chicago in the United States with the terrible fires, and how they built these tall buildings called skyscrapers so that the fire couldn't destroy the buildings.
Yeah.
And so innovation will figure out a way out of this to the next level, and we'll be a better world for it. It's just that we've got to get this virus under control, and the United States under President Joe Biden hopefully will continue to do great things. But our country is very divided, so we're hoping that we can pull together. And I know leaders around the world are pulling for America, the United States. And by the way, I want to go to Switzerland. I went to Zurich many years ago. I love it. And kudos to Roger Federer. Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
thanks.
Well,
But I'm not Swiss. I'm Dutch.
Oh,
so I would like to, you said you had some good news. So before we depart and close for the day, Ben, what's the good news?
The good news is that financial world apparently is doing very well. If you look in the US, the market is doing amazing. Don't ask me why. I don't want to even get into it. And now we have the vaccines. We have 3 vaccines come out in a very, very short time. So these are the very, very strong good news. I mean, one came out from UK, from US. So I think we are moving at a very, very good way. I just wanted to add to what Steve mentioned is that because I know also the governor of Hong Kong, they were very well prepared because they had the SARS. So they had the exact rule book. So the moment they heard about COVID, they immediately locked down all borders because they have 8 bridges connecting them to mainland. And that helped. So despite of its proximity and vicinity, still Hong Kong had the least impact compared to China mainland, although it was nearest to China. But the issue I see, because in that way I'm a bit kind of hesitant in this, these softwares and apps, is that data sharing, and because now we are talking about personal data, where I am at this moment, where am I going in 1 hour, who am I visiting, and Europe has a history has some nasty history in the last century. So we are, I think, very much hesitant about sharing our personal and private data with government authorities, because I don't know if you're aware, like Netherlands, where I come from,
Yes.
We had one of the best registration system in the world since centuries. We registered everything, every person living where, his house, his age, date of birth, religion, everything. So when the Germans took over Netherlands, they used the same registration system to hunt down the Jews. So that's why countries like Netherlands have a kind of paranoia, and the citizens have a paranoia to give all their basic personal data to a central registration or a government or an authority or something. Because another thing that history has taught is that once the government or authority gets a data, it's very, very difficult to turn it back. You can't say that you can trace my data, everything today, and by the way, from tomorrow you're free again. In reality, it hardly never happens.
History does show us that any technology that we build that might be for good humans, and I've seen great inventors, and they break down when they find out that it was used for bad. So you're absolutely right. But on a good note, we're heading upwards. I want to share something with the world before we head out. Ben is going to be speaking at the World Leaders Summit. I read all the and I saw you there. I was the first to see you there on our team. And but anyway, I want to share with everyone, because the World Leaders Summit gave IBMTV coupons for their viewers to register with. So I'm going to share our advertisement for it. Just hang on. Wow. And, Ben, I can't wait, because I'm going to get to see you speak. But what better way and more positive, powerful way to spend your lockdown holiday than to go watch the World Leaders Summit, learn something, connect with people, get engaged, and coupon code is WLS IBMTV. And if you can't remember it, please call me.
Exactly. It went too fast.
Oh, okay. WLS IBMTV, and you can register for free. And you know what, Steve? I better see your name on that registration list with our coupon code, because there's so many people there. I've had Arijit on our show last week. He's going to hopefully come on next week. Again, December 7th or 6th, December 6th through the 16th. 10 glorious days of positive energy. Build yourself up. Learn what other people are doing, startups, businesses, investors, because they're going to do another one, probably in about 3 months later. There's going to be another one. So prepare yourself to maybe go apply for the startup program that they have, which, by the way, I kind of partially registered, and I thought it was really cool how they do the registration. So if you get bored, go out there and register, because they ask some really cool questions. But you know what, guys, we've got so much, and I hope everyone comes and joins us tomorrow to share more good worldly news. And we'll see you tomorrow. go watch our special with the Thursday podcasters. We've got a group from Nigeria because, they're not celebrating Thanksgiving like we are here in the United States. So they're celebrating all the great businesses that they're doing. So watch Podcaster Thursdays. And then tomorrow we've got Med Fridays. Of course, we've got the World Edition. So we look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.